So we're officially live. Let me just. Hey, it's Wednesday, and as always, Wednesdays are always a busy day for some of us. But not so busy anymore for our guest today, who's joining us, assistant coach and fielding coach to the Hollywoodbets Dolphins. Not victorious. It looked a little bit like the SA20 this season, where the Durban side fell short of gold. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit emotional, a bit disappointing after an exhilarating semi-final. But without me saying too much, congratulations on a final, Mr. Mduduzi Mbatha, who's joining us tonight. And thank you for joining us and for agreeing to having this conversation despite um, maybe a little bit of difficulty after that final. But I just want to know from you just how you're feeling um, post the final, and then I think we'll discuss the season once you've let us know about your emotions. You're not a United supporter, ne? Or are
I
you?
am a United supporter.
Askies.
First of all, I would like to say good evening to everybody. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for allowing me to come onto your platform. I've been super excited to be involved in one of these, and it's been a while. It's been a really busy season, an enjoyable one, and one full of moments, and one that one will always cherish for the lessons learned and the growth throughout the season. To talk about how I feel right now, this was the fourth final T20 that we had been in, and the fourth time that we come second best. So if you had to ask me how I'm feeling, I feel the same as I felt all the other ones, which was a little bit disappointing, but it's an honor and a privilege to be in the actual final. So we were hoping that we could cross the line this time round, and unfortunately, we weren't able to. But yeah, proud of the boys in terms of how they went about their stuff. And unfortunately, there has to be a winner, there has to be a loser, and unfortunately, we're on the losing side.
For fourth time.
For the fourth time.
And I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing because I'm not laughing at you or the team. I think I'm just laughing at how hard it's funny, but it's not a joke type of thing. I mean, we've watched the squad work so hard, and we watched that semi-final against the Warriors, which was um, quite exhilarating, especially against a team who is so good at that Kingsmead Stadium. But then you went on to the final at Wanderers. Just talk about perhaps what was the feel heading into that final after victory in that semi-final?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say we've always believed that it's not how you start, but how you finished. We didn't start so well in the competition, and we found momentum as we went on. We hadn't found a perfect performance yet, and luckily for us, in the semi-final, things came right, and it was a really good team performance. So leading into the final, we felt that we were going to peak at the right time. So everybody was excited and good to go. But when you look at the history or the stats and the numbers of our performances coming into the final, batting first wasn't something that we had done well throughout the tournament, but chasing was something we did extremely well. And leading up to the final, we were hoping we would win the toss and bat second. But unfortunately, and it is a toss at the end of the day, we ended up batting first and having to put up a target. But we felt confident, we felt good, we felt as if we could peak at the right time, and the camp was happy, the camp was excited. So leading up, we were definitely excited about it.
I know Pranilin said the same thing, where he in press conferences and in conversation with journalists, he obviously had stated that he's quite happy with the squad and where they've sort of led up to, and exactly what you're saying, they peaked at the exact right time. Um, but I mean, and I know there's been a great combination of young and old in the squad. But just talk about um the inspiration on the younger players that the older players sort of had.
Yeah, I think it's exciting in our squad. We've got guys that have played over 200 T20 matches. John Smuts.
Yeah.
You've got guys like Kaz Wondo who've played more than 100 T20 matches. You've got quite a lot of experience. You've got a couple of internationals. Petlekwa has also played close to 150 T20s. So Brian has been a stalwart for Dolphins cricket and KZN cricket. So you've got quite a lot of experience. And then you've got youngsters like Andile Simalani. You've got guys like Bryce Parsons, guys that don't have that much experience in T20 cricket. Marcus Ackerman, who's currently just found his game in T20, and someone who's looking to make a mark. So the blend is absolutely amazing. It's good for us. And then I think that's good because it covers different aspects. You need the old heads mixing with the new heads, and that makes the blend and the togetherness of the team really good because it covers all aspects. You still need the youth with the energy, but you also need the old with the experience. So the blend of the side was really, really good. And I think that makes a big difference for the environments because, as I said, you get experience from the older guys and that youthful energy from the younger guys. So as a squad and a team, I think it's a really great blend of players.
The start of the season was quite a difficult one. I think it was it four consecutive. I stand to be corrected, but was it four consecutive losses that the Dolphins had at the beginning of the season?
What
I
happened
don't remember so
was,
late.
yeah, we played first. We played the One Day Cup. One Day Cup. A lot of our games were rained out, so we only
Yeah,
played a couple. We lost a few in the beginning, also with rained out games. So we couldn't find momentum into that competition. And then, yeah, it wasn't the best start for us as the Dolphins. Yeah, so it was a bit of a tough start, but it's interesting because I think as a squad, and what I enjoy is that in the preseason, leading up to the competition and leading up to the whole season, we have discussions in terms of how do we um, tackle those sort of moments in the season. There will be difficult times in the season. You sit down as a team, you build a culture, you build an environment in which you guys have to stick to what you promised each other in the off season and the preseason leading up to the season. And it was really good that the guys were able to still keep the environment in a good place, even though the results weren't going our way. We were able then to obviously turn things around quickly, get into the 4 day competition, which really went well for us. One of our stronger formats. So yes, it was tough in the beginning, but as I said, we hold each other accountable for the culture that we've created, and to make sure that everybody aligns with what we would like to achieve as a squad. And no matter what the results are, we focus on the process, and the process is to make sure you stick to the culture, you stick to the adding value in the environment, and being open and transparent as a squad. So if we're not doing well in one aspect, you must be able to speak transparently about it and open and honestly about it so that you can grow and learn and turn things around as fast as possible. So yeah, tough start, but as I said, the culture is really good and strong, so we were able to turn things around.
yeah. I think that culture sort of shined through the team after that. I'm just looking back at the first couple of T20s. Um, you guys had to bounce back from a couple of defeats. First game, Warriors took victory there. Ironic because took you took the victory against them last week, Thursday. And then the next game was against Province. They took the victory. And then it sort of went on there. And then the Dolphins rose rose to the table against the Lions, which again, ironically, in the final, were beaten. Those were the first couple of games. But I mean, just reflecting back on that first game against the Lions, and then just looking at the final, it was a first game. It's far. I'm asking you to go far back now. but but that game, it was the first or second game, and it was at the Bull Ring. You had you had the final at the Bull Ring. Maybe just talk on the conditions in what you saw the difference was in the conditions of the wicket, and just the strategy that you guys took in that final versus in the first couple of games at the Bull Ring.
Yeah, I think when the first thing I would like to bring up is our first discussion would be what would you look to do in ground like the Wanderers? So most teams would like to chase because of the high fouls and how fast the pitch is and how good it is, and also you kind of see what the first batting team does, and then from there you are able to adapt and do what's needed for you to chase down the score. So when we looked at what we were looking to do, we were looking to obviously bat second against the Lions in the final, and the difference was obviously in Durban, they batted first and we chased, and we were able to chase down the score. And same thing, the opposite happened when we played them up in at the Wanderers and also again in the final. So the conditions were really good. We knew what we had to do. We when we spoke, the par score in the final we felt was 180 and we ended up getting 165. So we knew that it was always under par. But in terms of the approach, the guys still back their skills. It's about execution. I think the most important thing is rising to the big moments. In every game, there's big moments. If you look at the final, we got a run out in the first couple of overs, already on the back foot. And then last over in the last ball in the power play, we lose another wicket. And yeah, so it becomes really tough from there. You're losing 3 wickets in the power play. You're always fighting to get back into the game. So those small moments make a small difference, make a big difference. But I guess we were positive going into the final, knowing that we had to execute our skills to the best of our ability. So I would really say the conditions were good conditions. We just had to adapt and obviously put our best foot forward. And unfortunately, we weren't able to.
I mean, there were obviously some players that came to the fore, that sort of rose to the occasion, if you will. The likes of Jason Smith, the likes of Parsons, and Clele, who, like I said before, had risen to the fore. We saw Ogutle also outstandingly perform in the ODIs as well. Just talk about like what the mentality of these youngsters were, just heading to or right through the season, the T20 season.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was actually thinking of this before coming online. Was people don't understand the distractions that happen behind the scenes with players, and there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. I'm obviously not going to go too much into detail into it, but you probably would like to have a clear mind, a positive mindset towards what you're going to do. Not look for excuses, but look for solutions in situations. And if you have that mindset and that thought process, most likely you're going to do well. You make sure that you're well prepared, and you obviously make sure that in your mind is clear, and you back your preparation to execute your skills under pressure. And with those guys that you just mentioned now, they were really, really good with that. Really backing their skills, committing 100% to whatever decision they made, and the game looked very simple for them. Their minds weren't clouded. There weren't too many distractions. The focus was just executing their skills, and it was exciting to see. As I said, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. It comes to the back end of the season. People are moving. People are thinking of, do they still have a contract? Do people think there's things happening at home? People have partners, they have family, there's issues, there's things that they have to deal with that people don't know. And then those things can filter into their game. But the really good sportsmen are able to separate that. When it's time to obviously do what you have to do and execute your skills, you are then able to focus fully on actually doing that. So for me, I think those guys that you've mentioned are probably the guys that have been fully committed in executing their skills under pressure. And obviously that has turned out for them to have a decent T20 campaign. And it's really good that they were able to step up when they needed to step up. And then the BMT in the final is just something that you need to have. It's either you have it or you don't, but the preparation leading up to it was really good.
I'm just looking at some of Jason's statistics. There's a player I want to mention, but I'm going to mention him a little bit later on. Because you spoke a little bit about what's happening in their lives and who has jobs and who don't. But just looking at some statistics now, in Jason Smith, he's done quite well. He's contributed quite heftily in that semi-final. He contributed 30 of 18, which is just magnificent. Adding to that contribution of Kaya Zondo, who sort of built that momentum in the top order. And then in that final, he obviously scored his half century. Just perhaps discuss what Jason's chat sort of was in that change room in a build up to scoring that half century.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up a guy like Jason Smith. He really doesn't say that much. He keeps things as simple as possible for him. He doesn't complicate things. He keeps it as basic as possible. He backs his abilities and backs his strengths, which is something that's really good to see. He takes in information that is given by the analyst and what we've picked up and think the trends that will work at certain grounds. So he takes in information really, really well, and he's able to execute what's needed at the time. Probably one of the most calm heads, the guys that are able to execute under pressure. And he knows how to build an innings and press the accelerator when it's needed to, and also be able to take his time when it also needs to when he needs to take his time. So he's a very laid back guy. Doesn't really say too much. His emotions are very stable. He's clear on his thoughts, and as I said, preparation then leads into execution under pressure, and he's really, really good at that. So in terms of words, not too many words, but in terms of action and clarity in what he has to deliver, he's brilliant at that.
That's certainly important. Correct me if I'm wrong, but does he maybe remind you of a character like Quinton de Kock in terms of just being that quiet guy, but shining and making a noise with the bat?
Yeah, something very similar. Quinton is more of a maverick. He's got something special, and Jason, for us, also his ball striking is one of the best in the country, I believe. He's really good, and he's a really great player. So I have to say and take off my hat that his talent just has to shine with a little preparation and hard work. The rest will take care of itself, and he's shown that. And as a senior guy in the team, he's played domestic cricket for a period of time, so he's an experienced head. He knows what he has to do. And for him, it's just to stay motivated and keep on doing what he's doing. But what a brilliant player, what a great lad, what a good guy to work with in the change room. So, yeah, he's someone that definitely is a backbone and a core of the Dolphins cricket side.
I'm going to mention a name that has sort of made waves in domestic cricket that came through the Dolphin setup, and obviously that being Andile Mo. Yes, I struggle with the surname Mohakane.
Yeah.
Just perhaps, I mean, you guys had to go against Andile in a couple of matches, especially I think it was last week in that semi-final. Maybe just talk about what you've seen at the Dolphins, and what he's done in terms of his contributions to the team, and then just how he's shown for the Warriors.
Yeah, what a beautiful story that was. I was there when he first came into the squad. I worked with him at under 19, where he made SA under 19. Why I say it's such a beautiful story. He was part of the Dolphins setup when he first came in, and he didn't even play one game because the team was really, really strong. It was chock-a-blocked, and he couldn't get an opportunity. So because he couldn't get an opportunity, he then moved to the Tuskers, who were in Division 2 at the time, and was able to work on his game. One thing that a lot of people don't do, well, I think he's done extremely well, is growing your game every single season. So he's able to work on his game and has grown immensely. Hence, he got the call to go to the Warriors. Then went to the National Academy last season and was able to improve his game, did really well as a batsman at the National Academy. And then it's no shock that now it's paying dividends in terms of his performances. He's a guy who's hungry, a guy who wants to do well, a guy who's disciplined, a guy who's always looking to learn, and he has a really bright future. But at the time when he was with us at the Dolphins, unfortunately, he couldn't get a. There was a lot of guys ahead of him, but as a guy who's grown and done extremely well, and someone that we know very, very well, we're really happy that he's able to put in performances like he has. And as a Black African batter, he's someone to look out for in the future. So I just think he's someone who's hungry, who has a winner's mentality, doesn't make excuses, and yeah, exciting times for him. I just hope that he keeps the same, a good head in his shoulder, and keeps things going the way that they are, and the rest will take care of itself. But what a good kid, yeah.
You've said a lot now, and it's sparking a lot of things in my mind. But I mean, you did say something that has struck me a little bit earlier on, in commenting about Andile, where there seems to be a congestion in talent, which I guess is a good thing, um, because then you don't struggle to find talent. But obviously, in the negative aspect thereof, it's sort of despite despite domestic cricket in South Africa being so large in scale, there's still not enough to go around. How do you think that can be changed, to sort of mold players like Andile, through these different structures, and give especially Black African cricketers fair and equal opportunities within the sport, especially a sport like cricket?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. That's obviously has come out the last couple of days. It's a massive topic. Everybody's talking about it. One Black African in the World Cup squad. At the end of the day, the South African team is trying to win the World Cup, so they're going to take the best players to the World Cup. I
Yeah.
think when you get to international level, you're obviously trying to put the best team forward. So I know that's a big topic right now. The first question is, do you deserve to be in the World Cup according to the performances that you've put in? And if the answer to that is yes, and then you are then left out, we can then debate. But if your numbers and your performances are not adding up, I think we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and be able to answer those questions. How do we change the system? The system is to make sure that everybody has the mindset that they are in the team to perform and they're not in the team to fill a number. That's just a mindset. So I'm not competing against other Black players, or I'm one of the Black players, or I'm a Black African player, or Indian player, or colored player. I'm just a player who's trying to perform and do well for the team. I'm competing equally as everybody else, and that's the mindset that we need to have. I think that's the first thing that we need to overcome, which is the mindset and the people believing that they can do anything that any other race can do, and you obviously backing yourself and backing your ability to do that. I don't want us to shy away and say it's a Black thing, it's a white thing, it's a colored thing. It's not. It's a performance thing. You need to put performances together to be able to be picked, and that is going to grassroots. We need to see guys performing at school level, tuning in the runs, picking up the wickets. That then filters through into the system, goes up to under 19s, it goes up to obviously into the domestic structures. I think we need to be harder on ourselves in the lower divisions and get guys to actually perform, and then it becomes a norm. Guys haven't performed in at school level, and then we just expect them to come up to professional and domestic level and perform. It doesn't quite work like that. It's been a while where we've had a superstar, someone come through as a Black African player and totally dominate. And I think that it's our onus and our mandate as coaches to push guys to believe that they can be. There is talent out there, it just needs to be nurtured. And as I said, the mindset at the end of the day is to obviously look to perform. Perform, don't make excuses, and make sure that you put the numbers down so that you're not left out of the team. Black, white, Indian, blue, purple, whatever you are, just get the job done, perform, and ask the right questions. No expectations, no entitlement, no non-merit selections, but through performances, the rest will take care of itself. I hope that answers the question.
I think you answered more than just my question. Um,
Mm.
um, it's so great that you say these things. It sparked a memory now where I had a conversation the other day with someone who is from, I think, Mduduzi, and he had mentioned in passing that, because I'm from Richards Bay, he had said, "Did you know that in Nzeleni or Skawini there's a cricket team and they are playing cricket ekasi?" And I was shocked at the fact that people ekasi are playing cricket. And then obviously the question was raised is, do they have the support? Um, do they have the facilities? Do they have, the infrastructure and all those things to sort of mold exactly what you're saying, to mold and create those players. Doesn't matter what background they're coming from, but just to come up and sort of shine with their talent. Um, but I want to move a little bit away from this topic in this conversation. You just take a look at some of the players in the Dolphin squad. Perhaps I'm putting you on the spot here, but there may have been some mention around, I think, Grant Rulofsson that could perhaps leave the Dolphins. Correct me where I'm wrong. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that we had a award ceremony last night, and it was announced that he's definitely leaving to the Rocks,
Yeah.
to the Pole Rocks. A quality player, a really really good player, a guy who's contributed immensely to Dolphins cricket. But I guess he's obviously decided to pursue that option to the Rocks. And yeah, it is a loss for us, but that was a decision that he made and took upon himself, that he would obviously then go across to the Rocks. What was good about it, it was he told us nice and early, or a couple of weeks ago. So the squad knew, and it was out in the press. So it is what it is. And we wish him only the best in his new endeavors there at the Rocks. But yeah, quality player, and we wish him all the best that side.
Maybe just highlight or reflect on his contributions at the top order. We saw him also do some great things despite whatever challenges he's faced.
Yeah, he's performed really, really well. When he first came to the Dolphins, I remember clearly he put in really good performances, match-winning performances. Um, a guy who was literally knocking on the door for higher honors, and things were looking bright. And I think there was a little bit of a dip in form, and I guess that has brought the decision to try a different path in a different team. But he's obviously definitely contributed in all the formats. He's won games with the Dolphins. He's a great wicketkeeper. He's a great person, and it is a loss for the Dolphins. But as I've said, as a player, you also look at the opportunity to grow and go to the next level, and he obviously believes that he could obviously go on and do well at the Rocks.
I was muted for a second. I'm just taking a look at some of the comments that are risen here. Paul says, great commentary. As someone who does not really know much about cricket, but take a part in it, this commentary makes it easier for me to understand and follow through. Keep it up, guys. Thank you so much, Paul, for that comment and your contribution. Then Moho, who I'll bring in soon as well, has says the season is now wrapped up, and I think what most would want to know is what needs to be worked on during the off season for the team to be hungrier for that silverware going forward.
Before we even get to that, trust me, we are hungry for that silverware. So it's
I mean,
not like
for finals, of course, you are hungry.
yeah, we're hungry for the silverware. So it's really, really aligning, making sure that everybody has the same vision. It's about having transparent chats,
Yeah.
open, honest. As I said, we have preseason and off-season conversations about these sort of topics. So it's really about getting everybody, even if we do get a few players in or whatever it is, just for them to align with our culture and our environment and for them to be hungry. This season for us was an extremely tight one. The reason why I say a tight one, we had to draw a game against Province away from home at Newlands in the 4-day cup, where we had to draw that game, and then we were going to be able to get into a final. So we lost the moment in the season. We could have won silverware there, and we were doing extremely well as a team. And then, as I said, and you obviously know, last week we obviously lost in the final against the Lions in the T20 competition. So a season of moments, but very proud. We played really good cricket throughout the whole season, so I don't think we're really going to change much, but it's really controlling those moments where we're supposed to cross the line. And when you needed to cross the line, unfortunately this season we weren't able to, and it's really about the BMT in that moment to be able to make sure that we obviously cross the line. But, you know, we as the coaching staff have had our meetings. We've had discussions on how we're going to run the off-season, pre-season, and yeah, we're good to go, and we're hungry to obviously have another successful season as the Dolphins. Just to make it clear to everybody, we're in a good space as the Dolphins. There's a promotion relegation table, and we came third out of 8 teams, which is really good. That's where we're competing. We're always competing to finish in the top 3, top 4. Top half of the table, and we're extremely happy about that. So we will remain and keep doing what we're doing and take pride in finishing in the top half. And yeah, the guys have done extremely well this season.
And with that, I do agree. Congratulations on a fantastic T20 season and a fantastic season as a whole. Not just to the men's side, but to the women's side as well, who obviously lifted some silverware in the one-day cup. It's interesting to see what KZN cricket, and in particular the Dolphin cricket, has produced just during the season. It's been a tough season. It's been a busy season as well at the Kingsmead Stadium. Closing centenary year, of course, the celebration of that centenary year at the Kingsmead Stadium. So congratulations to the Dolphins, congratulations to the teams, and of course to the staff, to you who's obviously contributed immensely to the success of the Dolphins. Going into a final is massive. It's massive to make it into a final, and it's massive to continuously make it at the top of the table. Hopefully, we pray, especially with the upcoming season, the upcoming domestic season towards the end of the year and the beginning of next year, we will see some silverware at the end of the season. Thank you so much, Duzi, for joining us this evening. I'm not gonna let you leave entirely. I'm gonna bring the rest of the crew up in, because I'd like to believe that there's still much to discuss, not just around the domestic structures, but of course in the national structures, which obviously Rob Walter has announced just this week. And you mentioned something earlier which I did not notice. I think I was just focused on whether the squad was good enough or not. And I think I'm happy with the squad that has been announced. But Sandile and Moho, I bring you guys to join us to join this conversation as well. Thank you for joining us again. Thank you, Duzi, for your time. What a massive wrap to this domestic season, especially in the T20 Cup. We've seen the wake or the rise of T20 cricket in the country, and across the globe, especially with club cricket, with SA20 wrapping up, and obviously us wrapping up the T20 Challenge Cup. Just perhaps your thoughts on us wrapping up the season, Sandile.
Look, how's the coach Duzi? How's it Fi? How's it everybody? Yeah, look, it was an interesting end to the season to see the Dolphins come back the way they came back, and the Lions also. To be honest, I think also the Lions had a bit of a slow start to the competition, and to see a team that's been winning silverware for the last since COVID, they've always had a bit of silverware in their locker room, and to see them fall short like that, it was sad to watch. it kind of resembled a bit of the SA20 where we saw Durban Super Giants take on Sunrisers, where they were there but they were not there. But I like how Coach Duzy said that the conversations have already started, even though they've already the end of the season on Sunday, a week ago almost. And that's good to see for South African cricket, where we end the season, but we start thinking about the next season as early as possible. Um, and then just transcending into the World Cup announcements, it's good names to see. It's a good spread, and I think the one thing, obviously, the whole of social media and the whole of the countries that's worried about is transformation. Um, Personally, I know I might have my head bitten for this, but we also got to understand that T20 cricket is form. It's what you bring to. Yes, you're good enough to play, but we mustn't also look at color. We must look at what you bring to the table. You're good enough, or you consistent enough. Um, and unfortunately, Quinny's been picked on past experience. And Coach Dews, I'd just like to ask you on that note, on do you think it's fair having a player being picked on past experience like that when there's players within the domestic structures that have been consistent for the season?
Yeah, I'm a stats guy, and I'm a person who pays attention to numbers, and I'm always looking at different options in which guys can obviously come in. If we look at someone like Quinton de Kock, who is the option to take over Quinton de Kock, with obviously Ryan Rickleton being someone who's in the squad already, who else then goes in and takes Quinton de Kock's place? That's the first thing that I would look at. Yeah. Say,
On
Sam's,
that
what to
note,
say? Yes.
I think, look, we got two keepers already. We got Ricks and you got Classy. So, in my suggestion, you can take the gloves away from Quinny and give someone like a Britsky a chance to say, Britsky, you've had a good T20 year, basically. Go in and go open the batting with Rex and or Rassi. Rassi, come in here. You've been a senior statesman, obviously, within the structures. Have a dip with the bat. Um, yeah, look, I think those are two batsmen that I'll call in as standbys to take off from Quinny. Rickerton's capable with the gloves. Klaus is obviously capable with the gloves. He's been doing it. He's there whenever Quinny had fallen short in the past. So why don't we just be like, Quinny, be strong about him, like, Quinny, thanks, but let's try something else.
So then and that's the first point, and I'm glad that you were able to answer. My second question to that is match winning ability. Quinton de Kock, can he play an innings that can win you a game? And if he can, and we're trying to win, I think you would give him the nod in terms of that. He's done it before. He's played match-winning knocks. Putting in a guy who's inexperienced in the World Cup, like maybe Brisky and so on and so forth, who hasn't really done too much at international. He even had his shot against Australia in Durban, and he can only learn. And hence, he is in the squad that's going to be going to West Indies without the IPL guys. Let's see what he does there. But I think those are my 2 points, really. The first one is who replaces him, and I'm glad you put us the names. And the second one is winning ability. Under pressure, do you have match-winning ability to win us the game?
I think on that, Coach Doozy, my biggest issue with coming to that, we shouldn't rely on one person. We got enough capable batsmen. If you look at, we're quite a heavy middle order based team. You got a Classy, you got a Miller, you got a Markram. Miller has tons of experience under his belt to play the match winning innings. Classy also has shown in the last 18 months that he's able to carry a team. He did in the previous 50 over World Cup. Markram was also didn't in the previous World Cup. They're all players. I think our biggest thing is, and we need to start being strong. I think, especially at the top, is Quinny. You've done it before. We're not against it. You've got the numbers. The numbers don't lie. The performances, we've seen them as everybody in the cricket fraternity. But there's also other players within the team that we can also rely on. Let's start shying away from relying on one batsman and taking the pressure away from him and allowing the senior players, I feel like, to step up consistently, because we don't. I feel like sometimes our players don't take that accountability in those big games where guys we need to step up. Let's show experience. Let's show that we've done this before in a bilateral series. Let's do it at the World Cup now. Because I think that's another issue that we have where, and I still go back to it, is the language that we have as coaches and obviously the media, the influence that we have pre-match on the language we speak to our players, how we speak to them and saying it's a must win. I feel like let's just keep a language simple that we've been using throughout the whole World Cup. For example, looking at last year's 50 over World Cup, our boys were basically cruising throughout that World Cup. Come the India game, we had brain fart. But the question is, what was the language in the back room from the coaching staff? Is it's a must-win game, it's a big game, and then we start losing our heads as a team? In that instance, Coach Duzi, like you just came off for a final. What's the conversations from semi-final and final do you guys have with players?
I like what you brought up. It's I'm a big fan of what you're talking about, and I'm glad you brought this up. And there's a beautiful documentary that just came out a couple of weeks ago with the Springboks, Chasing the Sun 2. If you remember very clearly when they had to play France, they were very open and honest about what were the challenges and the things that would be confronted with in order for them to win. And what if topic comes up? What if we under pressure? What if we are playing in a crowd with a lot of noise and there's distractions and so on and so forth? So do we embrace that in cricket? Do we embrace the pressures that come with the distractions that come with the game? I don't think we face those. It's easy for you to do well on the round robin stage. It's very easy. But we mustn't also be fake and be like, hey, guys, be positive and let's go. Because if it goes wrong, you need to be able to confront that. So what if things aren't going according to plan? And are you then able to bounce back? And we were in situations in the World Cup as a Springboks rugby team where we got yellow cards. We guys made mistakes, so on and so forth. But the guys knew that even in those situations, we need to find a way for us to obviously cross the line. That's why I draw massive inspiration in what the Springboks did. And I would like us also not to be afraid as the Proteas to be able to confront the pressures and those sort of things going into pressure games. At the end of the day, we mustn't lie to ourselves and say there's no pressure in a semi-final and there's no pressure in a final. There's a lot of pressure. It's about embracing that pressure and taking it on. So we were open. I'm one of those guys that are very transparent about those sort of situations. Some people don't like it. They say maybe I'm being negative. But what happens if you are the Dolphins and you've done extremely well throughout the season and you've batted second and won all your games batting second, but you've lost majority of your games batting first? You lose the toss, you bat first in the final. What then? If I bring that up, I'm being negative. But then what happens in the final? The toss goes
Yeah, it
up.
happened. It happened.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Look,
so yeah. You were saying, Sense?
On that point, Coach, just 2 seconds, is that Dolphins have been winning batting second. And I'm glad you asked that question, the change room, where it's a mental thing. Like you all are bound to lose the toss, and the toss is bound to go against you. What do you do then? Because you're put in to do a task. Now you need to show up. And having watched the game, sitting on the sideline, seeing how Dolphins been doing batting first and how they've been doing batting second, it was a very sluggish, slowish game where we could only start being explosive in the last 3-4 overs. With the powerhouse that Dolphin has in their batting, the experience and the explosiveness, you start expecting them to start hitting at the 13th over. And a player like Bryce, who's been explosive at the top of the order, he didn't come to the party. It had to be, again, a middle order player that saves the team.
Can I? Yeah. Sorry, Duzi. Can I also just squeeze in there? That is a problem that we're seeing in the Protea squad. Where
Correct.
And I think we've said this multiple times, where we seem to be relying on a certain amount of players or specific players. We have Klaasen we have Markram, we have maybe a Riza at the top, in the top three. We move we move Quinton down, or we move him up, and we see that in the SA20. Maybe I'm not looking at it in the right way, but we saw big players play together in the SA20, for example, and the same thing happened there. And I'm referring to the Durban Super Giants especially, because that's our top order here in the Proteas. We rely on those players to make those runs. And then when it comes to the bottom of that middle order, that's where things, I want to say something else, but that's where the pawpaw kind of hits the fan. But then we've got players who I think, and Sandile, you can correct me where I'm wrong, maybe Duzi, you as well. Ryan Rickleton has finally come up in the setup. And wait, before I let you, before anyone says anything, just, is a Ryan Rickleton gonna make the difference
Yes.
in this team,
Yes.
as opposed to, I don't know, anyone at this
I
point?
I'll answer asking a question for Coach Doozy after this. Is I feel like Rex will make a massive difference in the lineup because he's one player currently in that squad that has something to prove. That boy with Reza Hendricks, something's been missing with how they've been selected and utilized within the structures in the last couple of years. And I think mainly a Rickleton who's got something to prove. Rassi showed glimpses of it in the previous World Cup last year, but I feel like Ryan has a big point to prove, especially coming back to scoring close to 1,000 runs in T20 cricket this year. He's got a big point to prove. And to also say to a player like Quinton, because now my question to you, Coach Doozy, in relation to a Quinny, do you have a Rickerton and a Reza, and you have Quinny coming in 3 or 4? Do you make that change and say, Quinny, you're no longer going to face the new ball, go back to 3 or 4?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it depends where you are as a coach. Do you want to go with experience, the guys that have been to the World Cup, or you want to try and give inexperienced players an opportunity at a World Cup to grow and obviously build from there? Ryan is definitely a quality player. He's dominated domestic and deserves to be there. His numbers have been insane. They've been really good SA20 and also in the domestic T20 competition. He deserves to be in the squad. Starting lineup, you got to ask yourself the questions as the coaches. Do you go with experience or do you go with an inexperienced guy that we're not quite sure what he will do against the world's best at a World Cup? He deserves a go, definitely. But in terms of changing roles for players, I think you try stick with the roles that the guys are obviously picked for. And I think it's an out-and-out Ryan becomes a straight replacement for anyone who doesn't perform in the top order, and he can come in. But I would lean more towards the experience and take it from there.
I have a question. You're saying, let me paraphrase properly, right? You said
Yes,
Ryan Rickleton coming in for someone who can't, right?
yeah,
But then let's go back to the ODI, the World Cup, the
yes.
ODIs, right? That's what we saw with Riza. Riza, when put up at the top order, into bat to start, he was doing magnificently. Yet, despite him giving us results and making the difference in the team and in that contribution on the board, he still wasn't there. So it kind of makes me nervous to for us to say things like Ryan Rickleton to take or stand in, when we know he has the solid capabilities of making the difference, much like a Reza Hendricks in this Proteas squad.
Reza Hendricks opening the batting with Ryan Rickleton / Quinton de Kock. You will have to make the decision in terms of which one of the two opens with Reza Hendricks. So Reza
I
Hendricks
think
is
Quinny
now.
must sit. I think Quinny must sit on the bench for a while. Maybe I'm being controversial in saying this. I think Quinny must stay, especially in the opening games. Let's warm Ryan. Let's warm Rickleton up, ne?
Ah,
Warm him up. in the group stages. Warm him up nicely in the group stages, and then bring Quinny, keep him. People are getting old. You can't just throw them in the hot water. You Koya Mosa, you Koya
21,
Mosa in this, but that's old.
It's not old.
That's old.
With okay, I
Listen,
think
you bring him, you bring Quinny as a sort of like a super sub towards the
three.
later stage of the group stages,
Three.
right? So start Rickleton. I'm very controversial in saying this, but start Rickleton in that first two games, in the first two group games, and then once he's sort of warmed up with the team, okay, sharp, he's got World Cup experience. Let's bring Quinny back. Quinny knows what to do. He knows how to play, and yeah.
I feel like that'll kill the momentum of the team. That's what I'm saying. Have Quinn in your lineup. I think Rex and Riza will have to rock paper scissors for number 3, like because like Duzi said, to be honest, Riza and Quinny your opening pair. We can try debate it now and we try fight it now. That opening game, when I see Riza and Quinny open, and that's why I say have Rex at 3, have him bat at 3, because we don't know how the USA surfaces play. So if a wicket falls early, Rex is still opening because he's still batting the power play. And to bat with someone like a Quinny or a Riza, he's got someone that's experienced at that level to guide him.
Yeah, I think when we look at that, it's an exciting batting lineup in the South African setup. I think looking at the specific batting order, I think we've got quite a lot of options. So when we actually look at that, the coaches will obviously make the right decision when it comes into the first couple of games. One thing that I will say, which a lot of people are talking about in terms of the squad, every single person is there on merit and deserves to be there. You can play around with it, and obviously with the starting 11, but we've got a really strong batting lineup, probably one of the stronger batting lineups in the world, and it's about delivering and making sure that we can obviously do it throughout the World Cup and try and maybe come back with silverware. This batting lineup competes with the world's best. So I don't think we need to worry too much. I think that the one that we do need to talk about is more the bowling side. Do we feel like a guy like Nokia, who's brought into the squad, is a good addition to the squad? A guy like Nandre Berger, who's had a brilliant, last couple of months in T20, him being as a traveling reserve, Lungi being left out with his experience. Those are the Batman coming in. Those sort of things. I think the batting, we can go on and on and on, but we're really strong there. It's more the bowling. Do we feel like a Bjorn Fortuin coming back is a good addition? That sort of stuff. Yeah.
Sandile, I'm gonna ask you to quickly just hold in that question. There's a couple of comments here on the side, or below that I just want to bring forward. Enzo Ushe says accountability. That's what our players have been lacking for years. Interesting comment there from Enzo. I think it's Delia Rondganger, who says, why are we using IPL to measure selection of our World Cup squads? India and Australia don't take highly of the IPL stats, so why are we? Interesting comment. Just hold on to that comment, guys. And then Enzo comes back. Enzo's a bit lastig. He's making a lot of comments here. He mustn't care for saying that. But he goes there, says it's important to put the boys under pressure early on. It's a T20 World Cup, so there's no time to just settle in. The pressure needs to be on from the beginning. Great one. He is lastig here in the comments. He's giving a lot of comments here. Mocho saying accountability. Enzo goes on to say, give inexperienced. Okay, this thing is been successful, so try something new. He supports me also at the end. He says the Cox time is up. Give the new guys a chance.
I think just to put my 2 cents, I think with Enzo's comment there with give the inexperienced a chance, I think South Africa hasn't had enough time to, for example, to to go against a big team like an India and go bold and say, listen, all the senior players go play one day cricket and test cricket. T20 cricket, we're going fresh blood and have a whole sort of like a B side, a South African B side play in their T20 squad to grow up players. I think that goes a long way because India's able to do that. And us as a country, we have the players, but we're not as fortunate as India, where you got almost 1,000 players in your system just waiting to get their call up. And I think having players like Stubbsy in, and I've seen Duzi how Duzi talked about Stubbsy when he was at Coke Week in 2018 on how good he is and where his future is at. I think a player like Stubbsy who's performed consistently over the years deserves his place. And that's why I made mention to a player like Britsky, who also deserves his place. Britsky's shown that he can play at that level. And he can play with players that, in that level. For example, when you open the Queen at the SA20. And I think we just need to start finding those players and just using, sorry to say this, the minotaurs like West Indies and an Afghanistan game and all of those as a chance to give them the time to find their feet. Because I think that's very important. I think that's how we can integrate youngsters and inexperienced players into our squad. We still got to have our experience, but our experience is not living up to the standards.
I just want to. I think you're 100% right there, Sans. I just wanted to bring up the topic. Fortunately, I've sat in a round table with all the domestic coaches and the national coaches there. And what Enzo brought up about the IPL and players being picked, from IPL performances and stuff. Unfortunately, it is believed that our domestic structure is not strong enough and cannot breed players that will be able to compete at international level at the level that they need to compete at. So then that is why they look at IPL stats and those sort of stuff, and that's why they pick players from there. The SA20 has definitely helped a lot, but if you look closely, the players that are performing in the SA20 are not just domestic players. It's also international players that do extremely well. So the pool in which you're picking from in terms of performances has to come from also other leagues. And the approach would be, it's like an international soccer team. Guys play in different leagues around the world, and then they assemble all together to play for the national team. So I hear what Enzo's saying, but IPL does play a big role because then you are competing against other international players, and we can obviously use those stats. As I said earlier, the domestic structure is believed not to be as strong as the other domestic structures.
Guys, time is not on our side. 1 hour can and will never be enough time for us to ever talk cricket, especially when we start talking about the Proteas. But Duzi, thank you so much again for your time. Congratulations yet once again on reaching um, an exhilarating final in the domestic T20s. Sanjile, thank you so much for joining. I just want to give that call on the final squad that's heading to the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. In literally just a month's time, with Aiden Markram captaining the side, Courtney Bartman, Gerald Coetzee, Quinton de Kock, Bjorn Fortuin, Lisa Hendricks, Marco Jansen, Heinrich Klaassen. The big captain, Dolphins captain Keshav Maharaj, David Miller, André Murkia back after bad injuries, Kagiso Rabada, Ryan Rickleton, Blaze Shamsi, and young Tristan Stubby, with traveling reserves also going in case of emergency, Andre Berger, and perhaps a controversial name, Lungi Ngiti, who is not part of that main squad. Temba Bavuma is not in the squad as well. I think that must have been the talk of the town as well. Um, but yet again, that is the final squad that will be heading to the T20 World Cup. The campaign starting, the group stages starting on the 2nd of June. South Africa starting their first group game on the 3rd of June against Sri Lanka. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Um, it's always a joy having a chat with you guys on a Wednesday and sometimes on a Thursday. Loads of crickets coming up we'll have break, and then the season starts again with the World Cup, and then there's Women's World Cups as well, and loads of domestic cricket that will start again after those World Cups. Thanks again for your time, and thank you to everyone who joined us live. Have a good evening, and we'll meet again next week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach Doozy. Thanks, Faida.
Thank you, guys.